I think it's okay.
Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, everybody. Short notice, I know, but you did get a notice, albeit short. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize until a little bit earlier today that 2 weeks had already gone by. So I really do try to do these live broadcasts and keep everybody up to date on what's happening and all that kind of stuff. So I will give you a few more minutes to sign on before I launch into what I wanted to talk about tonight. You got the notice, and hopefully you got the notice. Now listen, if you didn't get a notice, let me know. Not that I know what to do about that. Um, I don't know what to do, you guys. I just know that YouTube is doing that to a lot of content creators that are talking about current issues. So and current events. So they really, they kind of woke. So they really don't appreciate it. And they start throttling back our channels. I know that at one point there was like, now I never had a huge following. I have a lot of subscribers and people come on from time to time. And I have the regulars that come on most of the time, and then I have some that just jump on from time to time, like people from Britain and people from the Bahamas and a lady from Ghana and all that. And I appreciate that, but it's not consistent, so I never know who's going to be here. So anyway, when you do come on, please make sure that you let me know where you're signing in from and give the channel a thumbs up. That just shows that you were here. It shows YouTube that you were here, shows me that you were here, and that you like the content. So, um, good evening. Good evening. I was rushing because it was 20 minutes. It was like 6:30 Central Time here when I got to thinking that it was about time for me to do another live broadcast. And I couldn't remember when the last one was, but I was thinking, I think it's been a couple of weeks. And so, and I was in the middle of, I multitask quite a bit. So I kind of had like two or three meetings going on at the same time. And I was jumping around back and forth to all of those. And then it occurred to me at 20 till that I needed to get set up on this. And so that was the quickest I ever got this channel set up to do a live broadcast. But anyway, my gosh, there has been a lot going on since we last met. One of the things being the financial issues that are rattling the world right now. Make sure you sign in. Let me know where you're signaling from, who you are, where you're signaling from, and click that thumbs up button. Um, so these bank closures and the non bailout that ended up being a bailout is going to end up costing everybody, including our children and grandchildren. Gotta like that. So I don't know if anybody remembers back in 2008 when George Bush handed the baton over to Barack Obama, and the banks were said, they showed up in their Lear jets with their hat in their hand, one hand and a beggar's cup in the other hand in Washington, saying, if you don't help us, we're going to fail. And it would have been a catastrophic thing, right? However, I think that when you are mismanaging people's funds like that, writing bad paper meaning bad mortgages. I used to be in the mortgage industry, and they're writing bad paper and selling it as good paper and lying to the clients and all this kind of stuff. And then they end up, if you ever watched the movie Margin Call or The Big Short, watch those two movies. Very interesting. Looks very much like what's going on right now. And So they wrote all this bad paper. They sold all these bad mortgages all over the place. Britain, all over the world. They sold all these bad mortgages. And then of course when the chickens come home to roost, there's no money. There was no money to pay for this stuff. So the taxpayers ended up bailing the banks out of their bad management. Well, the thing is, after they stole all this money from the taxpayers, they gave themselves huge bonuses, big vacations, the whole 9 yards. Now that ought to make you mad because here we are again. Now, if you remember, hi Chloe, thank you. If you remember, um, we talked before about the importance of moving your money out of these banking systems. Now, let me just say as a disclaimer, as I always say, and as some other YouTubers say, the information that you receive on here is for entertainment purposes only. Okay. All right. So I am not a financial advisor. I'll just tell you what I think my family should do. So now, if you consider yourself part of my family, well, there you go. But I'm just talking about me. Okay. I'm just talking about me. When, I'm a person of principle. And I feel that you ain't got to burn me but once for me to be looking at you like this. Okay. I'm not kidding. You ain't got to burn me but one time for me to be looking at you like out of the side of my eye saying, yeah, really? So, and then you have to earn my trust. Well, let me put it like this. You don't have to earn my trust, but you'll never have it if you don't. So there's that, right? That's how I feel about most situations. And that's particularly how I feel about the banking situation. Now, I explained to you all some time ago, a couple years back, my husband and I moved a large sum of money from Canada, which is where we used to live, back to the United States. They had no problem at all with us putting the money in the account. But then, but then we were trying to move some of the money to a different business because we were trying to do a legitimate business transaction with a legitimate, well known US company, and they flagged us. They flagged our account. It was unbelievable. So, and that was our second incident that we had at the bank. So, we ended up moving most of our money, all but just like a couple of $100, to a credit union. We just took it out. We got sick of dealing with them. They had very shoddy service. Their employees were incompetent in their job. There was constant turnover at the bank. And the bank was like it was in a perpetual state of training. Nobody ever got to know their job because they didn't last long enough because the environment sucked so bad. So they had a lot of turnover, horrible management. It was terrible. Therefore, the customers suffered. Anyway, so now you have this situation, poor management on a global scale, on a global scale. And so people like me have decided that we want to deal very little with the banks. Okay. We find other ways to protect our assets by not dealing with these crooks sitting at the top of the food chain wanting to steal your money. Now, what a lot of people don't know is that when you put your money into a bank, very few people take the time to read the tiny fine print that comes with all the papers that they give you. But somewhere hidden in there, I guarantee you, doesn't matter what bank you're banking at, you have given them permission to take control of your finance and to seize your finances. Okay? So technically, the money no longer belongs to you. So whenever you go to the bank to withdraw money, that's why they can put limits because they only keep something like I don't know, 1%, 2% of their deposits in the bank, actually. The rest of it is uh, set aside. Hi, Happy Camper. The rest of it is set aside for mortgage loans, or it's played out in the stock market somewhere, or in shares or futures or whatever they do with it. The money is not in house. Okay. Um, and so when you sign those papers to do business with that bank, you have told them that you have given your money to them. You have literally agreed to let them invest it and to do all this kind of stuff. And if they decide to have a bail in, which has been written into the laws now, meaning that they're becoming insolvent, they can take your money, not give it back to you, for the purpose of keeping themselves from going under. I'm just going to let you think about that for a minute. So if you're going under, it doesn't matter, because you could go back to that same bank and say, I need money so that I can take care of this crisis, or my car broke down or whatever. And they can give you the third degree about why you can't get that money right then, or why you have to make an appointment and come back in a couple of weeks, or why you have a daily limit of how much you. Now, listen, the funny part is when you put the money in there didn't seem to be a limit to how much they were willing to take from you. But there's a limit to how much they want to get back to you. So I want to stress to you again, please watch your finances. The banks are in trouble, folks. You've got these major banks that have been in operation for over 100 years, literally. Um, this is long money that's been passed down through their generations, that has been around for a long time. A lot of these banks are owned by British aristocrats, you know, and if you've done your homework, you know who I'm talking about. Um, and they do not believe that you have the right to anything. Okay. There has been a systematic devaluation of your life in their eyes. Um, Make sure you sign in. Let me know where you're signaling from and click the thumbs up, because I see how many is on here and the thumbs up ain't matching. Get with it. So anyway, um, so I want you to understand that when you put your money in there, you are giving them permission to loan it out to whoever they want to loan it out to. It could be bad paper, again, bad mortgages. It could be bad stocks. It could be bad investments in bad companies. It could be pump and dumps. You don't know, but you could lose it. And so when you go back to get it, it ain't there, folks. It's not there. They're not required to keep it there. So I think, for a lot of years, we were never taught this stuff, or the dangers of putting your finances in someone else's hands, right? We were never taught that. So, I mean, I didn't grow up thinking that I couldn't trust the banks. It was never brought to my attention. I heard things when I was coming up. You would just catch adults in conversations, and you're being a kid, you're not really investing much time in what the adults are talking about, right? But I would hear little things like how um, during the crash of 1929, when the stock market crashed, um, people decided they did not trust the banks. And so that's when you would hear stories about people stuffing money in their mattresses or doing all kind. Now I'm not saying do that, okay? I'm really not saying do that, because if you should happen by some freak of nature have a house fire, well, that would suck, right? So that's not what I'm talking about. There are other ways to protect your assets, but back then they did things like that. They would. I heard things like they buried it in barrels, or they take it out in the woods and find a particular tree and bury it by it and have a little map. You think all that stuff was just movies? It wasn't. People really did that stuff. So we don't have to do that today because there's other means and other methods whereby we can protect our finances. But the banks are failing, folks. They are failing. It is by design that they are failing. These are people in Washington um, and around the world that are having conversations with one another about this great reset. Okay. And these are heady people, these are educated people. So you'll be hard pressed to convince me that they don't know what they're doing. You would be hard pressed to convince me, just from a common sense perspective, that they haven't thought this through when they've been doing this for decades, working with finances and economics and all this. You'd be hard pressed to convince me that they have not thought this through and come to the conclusion that this would completely implode our financial system. They know that. They know that. So what would be the reason for them doing that? Well, the dollar is coming to the end of its life, right? I heard a conversation with someone the other day, and they were talking about how everything has a life cycle. You have a life cycle, right? Your car has a life cycle. Everything has a life cycle, and every cycle comes to an end at some point. Um, there are other nations in the world whose currency came to an end as it was. I remember when I lived in Europe, and at the time that I was there over 30 years ago, the Dutch mark was the currency when I lived in Germany. It wasn't long after I left Germany. I think it was within that year that I left, or it could have been the following year that I left, that the currency changed from the Dutch mark to the euro. And when that happened, they took a haircut. And when I say a haircut, I mean that they lost half of the value of their money when that happened. So I want you to consider what could possibly happen to your finances that are in the bank if you wake up one day, because let me tell you, they're not sending you a letter. Okay, they ain't sending you a letter. It's just going to happen. You might see a news broadcast where they say we've decided to do this, and then the next thing you know, the bank has what's called a bank holiday, meaning they don't open that day. They might not open the next day. They may not open for a week, and when they do open, everything has been restructured. Your money, as you know, knew it, is no longer. Some people will end up with zero. Some people will end up with half of what they had before, right? And so now you have the FDIC saying we're going to take care of all the insured clients in our banks. Well, how you going to do that? Because number one, if you print more money to cover all this mess that's going on, to bail out all this mess that's going on, the more money you print, the less value it has. It's the same thing with anything. The more there is of anything, the less value it has, right? That's why when you have uh, coins or whatever, collectors stuff, they'll say some things are rare, and because they're so rare, their value is high. But the more of it there is, the less valuable it is because everybody's got it, right? So there's that. So when they keep printing money and printing money and printing money, the more they do that, the less value it has. Now, you should be able to see that when you go to the store and you buy something, and you're dealing with shrinkflation is what we call it, because you may buy the same product, but now it's three-quarters of the size that it was, and it costs 50 cents more, or it costs 75 cents more, or as much as $1 or $2 more than what it was a year ago or 6 months ago, right? So there's that. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me okay? I forgot to do a mic check. Can you Let me know if you can hear me. I know, I
I
know,
hear you just fine, honey.
I know my husband can hear me because he's
Hey,
not you. Anyway, if you type it in the chat whether you can hear me or not, I would appreciate that.
just put a Y.
Uh,
Yes.
so anyway, so there's that, right? Um, the more they print, the let thank you, Evelyn. The more they print, the less value it has. So financially, we're in trouble. Okay. And what I wanted to do was to try to help us try to navigate through this so that it does not, in a very horrendous way, impact your family. Okay. So I want you to think about, we've had this conversation before. It may have been a little while back, I'm not sure, but I know I have addressed this before. But now that the banks are acting the fool once again, I just thought it'd be a good time for me to remind you that I told you, watch your finances. How many times have you heard me say that? So when I say watch your finances, I don't mean watch them dwindle. I mean, do something with them, put them in something that will retain value. Because if they decide to have a bank holiday, folks, and they close the doors to the banks for 3 days, 5 days, a week, whatever, and then they decide they're going to do business again, they open up the doors and they're telling you, sorry, you have zero balance. Or what happens if there's an EMP? With all this saber rattling going on between the countries, between Russia and the US and China and the US, and they get all mad and decide, they want to hit us with an electric magnetic pulse that wipes out all of our electricity for Lord knows how long. The good thing is you'll have zero balance if you have any debts. The bad thing is you'll have zero balance if you need some money. Okay. So it's a blessing and a curse, but you want to be caught on the blessing side of it, where your assets were protected because they were tangible. You had them. You had them in real estate. And when I say real estate, I ain't talking about real property. I mean land, or you had them in metals, or you had them in something that would hold its value until the crisis was over and it was easily liquidatable. Um, or you had things that were tradable. You could trade things. You're going to have to think differently. And I said that before too, and I'm going to keep saying it because I always have somebody new on the channel who is hearing it for the first time. So you're going to have to think differently. And the other thing was the closure of all of these businesses. Now, I've been looking around the country uh, at these different states and the things that are going on with the businesses that are closing. And there's a lot of businesses. I told you all last year that the first quarter of this year, that a lot of these companies were going to be closing doors. And that is what's happening. Walmart is still closing down stores. Um, there were two stores, I think, Walmart's in, I want to say Portland, that they have closed. So now these people have to drive 10 miles uh, to go to the Winco, or they have to go across state line to go shopping. So effectively, what they've done is they've created a food desert there. And so I don't want to get into um, the bigger picture of how diabolical this is, because if you've been keeping up with what's been going on and you've been keeping up with what the powers that be have been saying for decades that they wanted to do and how they feel about you as a human, um, then you know why this stuff is happening and you know what's going on. Now, you can believe it or you could not believe it, or you could feel like, oh, it's just so terrible. I don't want to think about it. You don't have to think about it. That ain't going to change nothing. They thinking about you. Okay, so every step they take is for your demise. Okay, I'm just letting you know they are not coming to help you. I keep telling you that they're not coming. They're not coming. And let me tell you this: all the methods, all the tactics that they're trying to use right now They have adopted from socialist agendas, they have adopted from communist agendas, and they never work. They never work. And the first people that end up losing out when they start bowing and kissing the feet of the dictators, those are the first ones to get okay. I don't want to use the word because they'll shut my channel down. But those are the first ones that get those are the first ones that find themselves in re-education camps and that they never return from. Okay. Those are the ones whose pictures end up in museums wearing striped pajamas and behind barbed wire and stuff like that. You get what I'm saying? The ones that cooperate with the madness, those are the ones who end up being the first to be sacrificed. And so you have to have a will to live. It's just that simple. Happy Camper said a Walmart in North Indiana is closing. This is happening everywhere, folks. And these are superstores, okay? These are superstores that are closing. Some of their boutique stores are closing too, but these are superstores. Where's that food going? What are they doing with the food? So, and that's a whole other, I'm not even, okay? I'm not even going to get started on that. But anyway, so there's that. So you have the businesses closing. Businesses do not close without there being a loss of employment. I'm telling you, it's a domino effect. Okay. So you figure Walmart employs all these people. They could employ as many as 700 or 800 people or more at one superstore, right? That store closes. That community suffers. These people have no livelihood now, right? So now here's the cascading effect. They have no livelihood. If they don't have any food, extra food at home or preps at home, how are they going to make it while they're trying to find another job somewhere else in a society that is quitting, that is silently quitting? I mean, where are they going to find work? And if they do find work, what kind of job is it going to be? And what kind of income are they going to be able to have with the price going up? Now, I know a young man, I mean, you got to be young in the head to do something like this. I know a young man who was working a job. He was good at his job. They always called him in on the job to do the work because he was good at it. He was getting paid, living on his own, doing his thing. Well, living with some friends, but able to pay his fair share and all that. And he decided that he got tired of people talking about him on the job. Yeah, he decided that, right? I'm thinking to myself, just do your job and go home. Well, who cares, right? Just do your job and go home. If the boss doesn't have a problem with you, do your job and go home. Well, he got tired of people talking about him on the job, so he decided he was going to quit. So my question was, okay, so where are you going to start work next? Because where I come from, you don't quit a job unless you had something else lined up already with a start date. Okay. Well, he didn't know. What do you mean you don't know? He doesn't know. I'm having a hard time finding work. Oh my God. So, all right. So he finally found a job. He found a job. And it's paying less than the other job, right? And they're still talking about it. Young people, what can I tell you? Oh Lord. So anyway, yeah, that happened. I said that to say the jobs are not that easy to find. Okay. And the stuff that's out there, a lot of it is in the service industry, which is not a high paying industry anyway. So it's going to be hard for people. So what happens to these Walmart workers and Bed Bath and Beyond, all these stores that are shutting down, shuttering their doors? These people are going to be unemployed. And if they don't have extra capital in their accounts or credit unions or whatever to help see them through this until they can get other means of income, it's gonna be rough, folks. And I've been looking around these different states and looking at the homeless issue, the increase in crime, and all this stuff that's going on because these businesses are shutting down. People are losing their homes. The car industry has absolutely tanked. The housing industry has tanked. Everything has tanked. Okay. Now, on the other side of that, because millionaires and billionaires are made in a recession and in a depression, right? There are people who have been preparing for this, who are sitting back drooling, waiting for the shoe to drop where the whole thing implodes so that they can come in with their money, swoop up all this real estate, swoop up all these businesses, do all this stuff and make money. Now here's the challenge with that. You have to have enough capital to tide you over the crisis. Because until you can restaff those businesses or rehouse your real estate apartment complexes or whatever with people who actually have money, it's a liability. You're just hemorrhaging money until we get over this financial crisis. Now, the Great Depression lasted 10 years. I think people in their minds, they hear the Great Depression and they just see it as like a temporary bump in the road where people lost their jobs, the stock market crashed, all this stuff happened, and it was a short period of time, and then everything turned around. No, it was 10 years. It was 10 years. 10 years where people had nothing. And they learned they ended up being very innovative and learning how to manage their lives with a whole lot less. And some people made it and some people didn't, right? A lot of people did make it, but there were a lot of millionaires made during that time. And a lot of the banks made a whole lot of money because they invested their money. They did what they call shorts, and they betted that something was not going to last but such a period of time. And when that happened, their bet was right. They got paid, And so I'm not into the stock market. I just have, I think, a couple of stocks, but I pulled my money out of the stock market when I got to almost the halfway point of what I had invested. I was determined I'm not losing anything else. So I pulled it out and I put it somewhere else in something else that holds its value. So that's what I wanted to tell you guys that you need to be thinking about doing to protect your assets. You need to do that. We're still dealing with food shortages. I saw a lady the other day, and this is very sad. It's not the first time I heard it, but it's the first time I actually saw someone do it. She was talking about how she's making it right now. And what she's doing, this is, I hope I don't nauseate anybody, but what she's doing is she is literally buying crackers and buying cat food. She's telling herself it's pate. She's putting it on, spreading it on crackers. And she's saying it really doesn't taste. She said it really doesn't taste that bad, and she named one brand. I think she named 9Lives. I think that's the name of a brand. And the other one was Friskies. I remember Friskies, and I kind of remember 9Lives when I had cats. And she said that one tasted better than the other. And I thought to myself, wow, I have heard of people that are elderly or whatever, that they're on a very fixed income and they just cannot afford the high rising prices of food, and they resort to eating cat food and dog food and stuff like that because they say, oh, it tastes like tuna fish or whatever. And this is what she's doing. And she feels like she's making it, and she's got, and this is in America, folks. This was not in some other country where I do a whole lot of research and I look around in these other nations to see what's going on. Because let me tell you something, they ain't doing good. Okay, they're not doing good. This madness has literally gone around the world. I mean, I can't think of a country that it hasn't really touched, except strangely enough, the countries that are supposed to be enemies to the United States seem to be doing pretty good. They're not having food shortages. They're not, it's not, it ain't happening with them. So I don't know. So you may want to consider that you're being given a narrative or shown a picture of something that is not necessarily true, right? It's not necessarily the way it's being presented. And so just keep that in mind. Um, think about gardening. We talked about that before. Um, I had somebody make a comment to me once about, oh, we've talked enough about gardening. Well, no, not really. You got it. You want to eat? That's what, unless you're going to go on a perpetual fast and you never have crop failure, you better be trying to listen rather than being so dismissive. Okay. That's what I want to say to you. But anyway, um, I was trying to focus on people that lived in smaller places like condos, townhouses, and stuff like that, where you may not necessarily have a spot outside where you can grow food. Now, unless you have an acre or at least 1 acre or more, you cannot grow enough food to sustain your family. It's not you can't do it in pots and containers, but you can do something to supplement what you have in pots and containers if you're living in a small space. So you need to look into that. There's all kinds of videos on YouTube, on the internet, that will talk to you about that, show you how to go about doing it. You can even plug in to your search bar what region you live in. You know, like I'm in 7, and we have 7A, we have 7B, and depending on what you want to plant, it might grow better in A than it grows in B, or vice versa. And it'll tell you what time of year to plant those things. It'll tell you how to plant them. It'll tell you whether you can grow it in a pot or whether you have to do it outside, whether you can direct seed it into the ground after the last frost, or whether you have to start it indoors 6 weeks early or whatever. It'll tell you all that stuff is on the internet, but you can also get it in books. Because, like I mentioned before, what happens if there's an EMP and there is no internet? What you gonna do, right? So you need to be compiling a library of things that are important to you, things that you want to know how to do, so that you are not dependent upon electricity that may not be there. Okay, so there's that. So with the businesses closing and people losing their jobs, and the homeless crisis is getting worse, and the powers that be, the financial organizations around the world are playing footsies with each other, and they really don't care what happens to you or how it impacts your family or anything like that. I want you to give serious consideration. Sit down with your family, have a conversation, or your best friend, or whoever it is that you trust. Call them, talk to them, say, listen, this is a very real possibility that our dollar can completely tank, and we don't know when. What can we do to protect our money? What can we put it into? What can we turn it into that'll hold its value? And when the time comes, if we need to trade it for something else of value, we can do that. But you have to determine what's valuable to you. Now, some people, I'm not doing this, but some people are investing in um, farm equipment and stuff like that, because they feel like, you know what, uh, all this stuff that's going on with the distribution centers, and I don't even know how many have burned down at this point. How much crop failure there was last year, bad seeds being sold to the public, seeds that have been radiated that won't sprout, and all this kind of stuff. Everything dealing with our food supply was tampered with somehow or another, somehow affected, right? So people that had been gardening and all that, growing their own food, they had started saving their own seeds, right? So they may have taken it a step further and say, well, let me invest in some farm equipment. I'm going to invest in a tiller, or I'm going to invest in a backhoe, or I'm going to invest in something like that. And then When it comes time for me to plant my food, I have the equipment to do it so that it's not so backbreaking, because maybe you've gotten to an age where you can't get out there and do that stuff by hand. You need machinery to help you, right? But here's the thing. You have machinery that can help you, but then you may know someone else who does not have the machinery, but they need the help. Okay. This is where you can enter into a verbal contract. All right. I have the machinery. What do you have? I know how to run the machinery. What can you give me in replace of my work? Right. So I'm telling you, you're going to have to start thinking differently. So some people might invest in machinery, other people might invest in gold and silver. Gold and silver has held its value literally for centuries. It has always been money, always. And so empires have come, they have fallen, kingdoms have come and have fallen. Money has changed several times with some countries. Gold and silver has always been gold and silver. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Gold and silver has always been gold and silver. And so you do with that whatever you want to, because I just, like I said, I'm not a financial advisor. So there's that. And then somebody was talking about, hi JB, somebody was talking about Bitcoin. Okay. Now, you know about the whole FTX thing, right? You know about that exchange that went, because it was kind of like a pump and dump. Let me tell you something. I had some Bitcoin. I cashed out of my Bitcoin, did my little tax thing, and got on down the road. Okay. And so now what's happening? The government, with their grubby little hands, they want to get in there and mess it all up because they want their own digital currency that they can control. The thing about Bitcoin, and the reason that the governments around the world don't like Bitcoin, is because you can't track it. You can't trace it. They don't know where it went, who made the exchange. It passes through so many servers and all this guy. They don't know who did what. It just, but with the digital currency that they want to come out with, they can track it. They can turn it on, they can turn it off, they can empty your account, they can put money in, they can say, I don't like what you said, they can say, I don't like your political views, and they can literally empty your bank account. You want to be part of that system? Do you want to be part of that system? Well, I'm just saying, just think about that. So there's that. So several years ago, was, I have a few groups that I talk to. And several years ago, I heard a person was talking about the necessity of having 5 streams of income, right? Like, don't have all your eggs in one basket. If all you have is one way to make money, then if that way dries up, what are you going to do? So he was talking about it's necessary to have 5 streams of income. So for the longest time, I talked to people about having 5 different streams of income, 5 different ways that you can make money. Some of the younger folks are calling it their side hustle and all that, whatever you want to call it, you need money, okay, in some way, shape, or form. And so, for the people that are older in my audience, you're not too old to be thinking about different ways that you can acquire capital and finances. You're going to have to think this way, because if you're on a fixed income and things keep going the way they're going, over time, you're not going to be able to keep up. And if you don't have any preps, people just get all angst when you use that word. I don't know why. If you had more than a cup of sugar, you got prepped. You got enough sugar for the next day. if you want to have coffee, okay, you have prepped for the next day. So I ain't trying to hear the craziness. But anyway, if you don't have extra food set aside, or water or whatever all else, and all you have is your fixed income, you're going to be in a world of hurt, because I'm telling you, prices are going to continue to go up because they are doing this on purpose. Okay. They're doing it on purpose. They want to make as many people as possible completely and utterly dependent upon the government, because if they can control your food and your water and your ability to sustain yourself, the more control they have over you, the less control you have over you. The more control they have over your life, the less control you have over your life. The more control they have over their ability to manipulate your decisions about how you live, the the less control you have over your own decision making. So I just want you to keep that in mind, because that's the time that we're living in. And this this is serious. This is serious. And I don't know how long I've been trying to tell people about these things. And so I just loop around sometimes, and because it's not a new incident that comes up, right? It's an addition to the same incident. In other words, we knew that the money was failing. We knew that they were printing and printing and printing and printing and printing. And so now, just in the last couple of weeks, our dollar has dropped more in its value just in the last couple of weeks, because they just keep printing, 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 printing. And now they want to. The woman, listen, the treasurer got on the national mic and said, "We will not be bailing out the banks this time. We have other mechanisms in place to deal with this situation." And then right after that, they started bailing out the banks. Okay, so they will lie. Stop listening to mainstream media, because they will lie to you. And that's all it takes. People have these itching ears, right? They want to hear what makes them feel good. They don't want to be challenged about what they've said or what they've done. They don't want to be challenged. They want you to just take what they say, hook, line, and sinker. And so if you don't understand what has happened in times past, if you don't understand history, you will repeat it, because you have nothing else to lean it up against and say, well, that sucked. You don't, because you don't know. So here I am telling you that when they start doing this stuff with the money, kingdoms have fallen, empires have fallen, they have failed because of this kind of stuff that's going on right now. So the question is, what are you and your family doing to weather this storm? You have got to get a plan. Now, I've heard some other YouTubers say things like, you can't do this by yourself. You got to have a community, blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's the deal with that. Define community, first of all. And second of all, if you are a person you're an introvert, let's just say you're an introvert. You wouldn't even believe that I'm an introvert, but I am. Okay. As we can tell you, I am quick to tell people, leave me alone. Okay. Stop talking to me. But anyway, if you think about, who is it that you trust? Who is it that is thinking mostly like you are, that you can brainstorm with, that you can sit down and discuss ideas with, that you can discuss issues with? Who is that person? Because that's the start of community. Okay. If you can't even have a conversation with someone, and a lot of people can, right? They feel like, especially if you living in one of these woke cities where they think all you got to do is just talk to the rapist. He won't rape nobody no more. You don't need police. Or they've corrupted the justice system, which, in my opinion, the entire justice system is corrupt. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it until I see somebody go to jail. Okay? And I ain't talking about innocent people either. I'm talking about people whose crimes are wide open for everybody to see, and they're still walking around free. I'm talking about them people. Okay? I'm talking about these banksters that stole all this money and did all this stuff. Anyway, so yep, corrupt justice system. There ain't no justice, it's just us right now. So find your tribe. It might be one person, right? It might be, just focus on living differently. Have a conversation with yourself. Say, self, yes, what can I do to live life more simply, more cheaply, more frugally, and still maintain my quality of life? This is where you have to put your thinking cap on, okay? Because you may say to yourself, well, I live very simply now. Well, let me guarantee you something. You're going to have to do better than that because until we come out of this cycle that we're in right now of the crazies running the asylum, you're going to have to be able to maintain yourself and keep your head above water, right? Now, I don't want to make this sound like everything depends on you. It doesn't. If you're a Christian, you know God has your back, okay? It does not absolve us from hard times. I mean, just read the book of Hebrews. That sucked, okay? People went through some stuff. I'm like, thank God it wasn't me. But I'm saying, don't think that just because you're a Christian, you're not going to go through hard times. The Bible tells you the exact opposite of that. So settle in. But he's your source, he's your provider, but he gives you wisdom on how to live your life in the middle of a crisis like this. You have to listen. You have to be willing to listen, and you have to be willing to do things that maybe you have not done before. Another thing is, I saw a lady, she was talking about the things that she could do in a crisis, in a pinch, if she really, really needed something. She could make anything with her hands by knitting or crocheting or sewing or things like that. She has skills. You know, our generation coming up, we were taught skills. We even had schools that taught us skills. We had trade schools that taught welding and automotive and home economics and all kinds of stuff like that. Those were skills, those were life skills. You learned how to survive. You learned how schools used to have community gardens and stuff, you know, 4-H clubs and all kinds of stuff that the kids were involved in. They learned how to take care of livestock and not where I went to school because I was in the city, but that stuff existed. And so those kids, that generation grew up knowing how to do these things. The problem is, as society marched on and did more building and more taking over people's lands and all this kind of stuff, we lost a lot of our farmlands, and so a lot of the skills were lost as the generations died off, and they didn't pass the trades on to the generations coming behind them because they weren't interested in that, because the whole technological age moved in and dumbed people down, literally dumbed them down. So now you have people that know how to turn on a computer. Some still don't, if you can believe that, but know how to turn on a computer, know how to use their smartphone, which is just another small computer, but they don't know how to grow food. And they don't know how to do animal husbandry. They don't know how to sew. They don't know how to work on a car. They have no skills. They got smarts and they're dumb. They don't know how to do. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. They don't know how to do anything. It's not too late to learn these things. Is what you better, because ain't nobody coming to help you. Find your tribe. Find your tribe. Look around you. Keep your ear to the ground in your area as to what is going on in your area so that you know how you and your family, or just you, need to prepare, right? If you hear that your grocery store is going to be closing, you need to go and get your food. Okay. You need to go get your food. You need to look in your house, look at all of your storage spaces, and decide what you don't need to be there. Because that's where your food needs to go, not in your garage, though. Don't do that unless it's a temperature controlled garage, which most are not. So don't do that. But look at what the space that you have in your home. What can that space be better used for, right? Do you just have a bunch of stuff? I mean, if you've got 3 or 4 teddy bears sitting up in the top of your closet because they have sentimental value or whatever, okay, well, God bless them, but can that space be better used for something that's life sustaining? Because if somebody gave you those things, it may not necessarily be that, but I'm just giving you an example of how we stash away stuff because we have sentimental connection to it. that has no life sustaining purpose. It just makes us feel good. Okay. Um, that ain't going to help you in a depression. That's not going to help you when Walmart and all these big chain grocery stores are literally shutting down and you don't know where the food is going to come from now. It's not going to help if that's the only store in your town and you have a horrific snowstorm and the roof caves in on the only grocery store in the town. That happened with a town of 10,000 people. It happened, folks. And they are scrambling, trying to figure out how to get food to these people because they couldn't go in the building because it was unsafe. That happened. Okay. So just think about what would be my situation? What is the worst possible thing that could happen to me in a crisis that I need to prepare for, right? So, for example, we live in an area where we are prone to tornadoes. Um, I was in a tornado once. Once. I'm from the East Coast. I had never seen a tornado. And then I moved to Oklahoma. Didn't know I was in the middle of a tornado. I just knew. And the thing is, at the time, I was working in corporate America and I was in my office. And usually I would have had the radio on. I didn't have the radio on. I had a tape player on and I was playing gospel music and all this. And I'm sitting in there chin wagging with my boss. You know, we were after hours. We were just hanging out talking in the office, me and him and the rest of the staff, because we like to be around each other anyway. We were an excellent team, worked very well together. And we were just hanging out. Well, none of us knew because we didn't have the radio on that a tornado was headed our way. We didn't know that, right? So we just in there hanging out. Well, we finally decided an hour after business hours were over that we should all go home. He should go home to his wife. I should go home to my apartment. And that was it, right? So we all left. I get in my car and I'm going down the highway and it's like, man, it sure is dark out here. It's getting dark. Wow, it's getting dark quick too. And then it's like, oh, I think there's a really bad storm coming. So by the time I got back to my house, which took me about 20 minutes by car to get home, and I walked in, I had a class that I had to do like right at 7 o'clock, and I was getting there like 10 till 7. So I'm rushing, trying to get ready for this class online that I was teaching. And this voice comes through my television. I turned on my TV, and this voice comes through my television that says, if you live in Oklahoma County, there is a tornado warning. Now, a warning is not the same as a watch. A watch means weather conditions are ripe for this to happen. It could happen, might not happen, but just be on the lookout. A watch is it has touched ground and we're watching it. We're going to let you know what direction this thing is moving in. Well, because I had just moved there, I had just taken that job. In my head, I was still living in a different county. So it didn't occur to me that I was about to get hit with a tornado. Okay, it didn't occur to me. And then I'm thinking, man, it's dark outside, you know? And this was summer. So it wasn't getting dark until like 10 o'clock. But this was at like 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7 o'clock. And it was dark. It was really dark. And then I heard this noise that I will never forget. It sounded like a train. When you hear people say it sounded like a train, it sounded like a train. Okay. You feel the rumble, you feel the vibration. Now, crazy me, because I did not know what it was to be in a tornado. And my apartment I had double sliding glass doors, and I was on the first floor, and it led to the courtyard where the pool was and all that. I open my doors, I go outside, and I look up, and I see what I thought was birds going in a circle. And I'm thinking, why are those birds going in a circle like that? That's kind of weird, And I'm just standing there looking. I don't see another soul outside. Now that should have been a clue, okay? But no, not me. I didn't get the memo, okay? So I'm looking up and I'm watching this thing go like this here. And then it was dead quiet. And this thing is still doing like this up in the air. It looked like all these birds were going in a circle up in the air. way up. And then stuff started coming down. And I'm looking, stuff was falling into the swimming pool. And I'm saying, what is that? Then this picture came fluttering down with this little girl with blonde hair and a white and red velvet dress on. And I'm like, and then I'm looking up thinking, ain't nobody taking those snapshots in heaven. So where'd that picture come from? So, oh my God. Then it hit me. Oh my God. I closed my sliding doors, went back into my apartment, sat on my couch and thought, okay, I'm supposed to get in the bathtub. I'm supposed to pull a mattress over me. I'm supposed to do something. Yeah, I couldn't get the mattress in the bathtub, first of all. And second of all, I'm thinking, I need to go into a closet. Well, then I open up my closet and it's full of shoes. I mean, I loved shoes. So listen, that was a good time to have a confession with God. Lord, I'm sorry that I hoarded shoes. Okay, I promise you I won't buy this many shoes ever again. So what was I going to do? So I went back in the living room, sat on the couch, and I said, well, Jesus, it's you and me. I'm either going up or I'll be sitting here when they find my carcass because I ain't got nowhere to go. So that happened. Guess what? Guess who didn't have any extra food? Me. Guess who didn't have extra water? Me. I had zero preps. Listen, here I was, single, kids grown. I was living the life, okay? I was eating whatever I wanted. I was eating out most of the time. I didn't have no extra food. I had nothing. I was sunk, okay? It was a very bad situation. And you only want to live through that one time. And I did, thank God. But I'm telling you, it taught me you better have something on hand. When I went out after that thing passed, when I went outside, first of all, this nut job that lived across the breezeway from me, I don't want to call him a nut job, but because I ain't really know the guy. But listen, when you just come through a tornado and you go outside and you smell gas, don't start to light up a cigarette. Okay, that's all I want to say. Give the rest of us a break. We want to live. This guy decides he's going to pull his lighter out of his pocket, put a cigarette in his mouth, and we're all like, no, you can smell the gas. Okay, don't do that. Don't do that. So apparently he wasn't prepped up on nerve pills. Okay, so I think he needed to smoke because he was nervous or whatever he needed. Yeah, no. So lighting a cigarette, bad idea. So he's like, oh. So he put the lighter back in his pocket. Oh my God. So then we walked down the breezeway. It was me and like 2 or 3 other people that lived in that complex. And when we walked out toward the parking lot, our cars, it was like the whole right side of our cars and the building was covered in what looked like sod and mud and grass and all this. It was bad. And I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't prepared for that. If it had taken my building out, I wasn't prepared for where was I going to go, right? So I had no plan in place in the event of an emergency. And so that's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I know that was kind of a funny story the way I told it, but it happened, okay? And when I look back and I reflect on that, if something had happened to my building, if my building had become unmanageable, right? Or unlivable, unfit for human habitation because of the storm, where was I going to go? Where I had a home. I did have another home, in another city. And I had that apartment. But if that wasn't the case, where was I going to go? Did I have a relationship with someone else where they could have put me up for a few days or whatever? What was I going to do? Now that's worst case scenario. This is happening right now in Ecuador with this horrific earthquake that they've had. And they're still pulling bodies out of the rubble. But listen, the people that made it, where are they going to live? Where are they going to go? Right. And so just be thinking about that. Don't think about how am I going to die? Don't get all angst out. But I'm saying my focus tonight was your finances. My focus tonight is your extra food, your extra water, your extra medicine, and things like that, because things are getting more and more and more expensive, less and less and less in your reach. And you cannot wait until you absolutely can't do anything about it to try to do something about it. It's too late then, right? And then all that's going to happen is you're going to become an exceptional burden on someone else. And you don't want to do that. You want to be able to help people, right? So anyway, so happy camper, I see you. True story, y'all. True story. Don't get caught in the tornado. So anyway, I had somebody was telling me that because Chris and I spent so much time in our RV, we ought to be storm chasers. I said, hey, my day to die. Look, I already, nope. I know what that's like. No thanks. Nope. They can put that on my tombstone. She said, nope. So anyway, all right, you guys. Listen, my email address is in the description box. Write me at enoughgrace12@aol.com if you have any questions. And also write me and let me know what's going on in your area, and I'd be happy to read that on the channel. You can let me know what city you're in, and I can let people know what's happening there, because there may be people, there are a lot of people that may watch the channel, but they may not comment, and that's fine. I still want them to know that I'm trying to keep my finger on the pulse of things to help you guys out. But this is a community, so I'd appreciate your input as well to let the rest of us know what is happening in your area. Like Happy Camper was telling us earlier that the Walmart in North Indiana is closing. So if any of you live in that area, you may not have known that, but now you do, right? Because you were on here when we talked about it. So let us know if you've heard of store closings in your area, whether it's food or Bath and Body Works, or it could be a mom and pop shop, whatever it is. People need to know that that's happening. They may not know. You may have been the first one to hear about it, and other people in your area don't even know that that's happening, right? So they can prepare for that. So anyway, anybody have any questions before I let you guys go? Because I really don't like to hold you longer than an hour, and it's been an hour and 7 minutes. So there you go. 8 minutes, actually. What else did I want to say? I ain't going to say nothing else, because then I'll start part 2, which would be another hour. That's ridiculous. So anyway, all right, you guys. Thank you for your time. Feel free to write me. Please share the channel. Please give this broadcast a thumbs up. The numbers are not matching the amount of people that are on here right now. I see that some of you have forgotten. There's 2 of you that have forgotten to do a thumbs up. So anyway, thank you. Now there's 1 of you who didn't do a thumbs up. Anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I know it was a short notice. And let me know also if you're getting notices, because I had people write me and say, I didn't get the notice. I just happened to go onto your channel and see if you were doing anything, and I saw where you did a live broadcast and I missed it. Listen, folks, I am so sorry about that. YouTube is doing that to all of us. They really just don't like what we're saying and all that. They throttle our channel back so that very few people can see it. If they come, if they're looking for us by way of a notification, some people are not getting the notifications, and that's why myself and others are very much dependent on you to send the link of this channel or this broadcast to a friend. Send it to them and ask them to watch the video and send it to someone else. That's the only way we can get the word out and try to continue to help people navigate through this craziness that we're going through, because we really can't control what's happening. We cannot control the decision-making process that's going on in Washington with this incompetent leadership. We can't do anything about that, but we can help manage our own lives and our own families so that we have the best quality of life that we can possibly have in the midst of the madness. Okay? All right. I love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. And I will see you the next time I come on. Remember, my email address is in the description box. And I do write you back, like right away. As soon as I get your email, you will hear from me. So check your spam, because I have had people say, I didn't get a letter from you. Yes, you did. Check your spam. It's in there. And if you one of them people that got 40,000 emails in your inbox, listen, you need therapy. Okay, I can't help you with that. So clean out your inbox, check your spam. I'll see you the next time I come on. Stay prepped.